Greetings to everyone on my channel. Here you can listen to various kinds of stories related to current relationships and realities. Sit down comfortably, it will be interesting for you. And I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. When you are closer to 50, it seems that you know yourself, your likes and dislikes, which inspires and energizes you. But I was already 47 when I realized that I didn't know myself completely. I had everything that seemed to make up a perfect life. I was married to Oleg. We had two beautiful adult children, a successful career as a chief accountant in one of the construction companies in St. Petersburg, a large apartment in an elite area on the shore of the Gulf of Finland. However, my life changed after a simple internet search. In the modern world, non-traditional orientation has become a more discussed topic. Many famous women, especially actresses, declare their orientation, which arouses public interest. Some representatives of this subculture prefer not to disclose their preferences, which sometimes causes surprise. For example, Russian singer Eva Polna did not talk about her orientation for many years, and only in 2012 told about her attachment to women. Eva is a mother of two children, and according to her, the gender of her partner does not matter to her. This information about her life made a strong impression on me, as it did not correspond to the stereotypes that are usually promoted in the media. My name is Olga Petrovna Smirnova. I am 47 years old. I was disappointed in my marriage with Oleg for a long time, especially after many years of living together and cooling relations. Over the past 5 years, I have been looking for emotional release and rethinking my feelings. I began to think about how to find new ways to self-realization and happiness, including through awareness of my femininity and personal preferences. And so my story began. My secretary, Verochka, was a conscientious employee, always ready to help with her work. Her dedication and professionalism allowed her to cope with any task. I have always appreciated her work and our friendly relationship in the office. Vera was very careful and responsible, which often helped me in difficult working moments. One day, while working, we talked about life and the difficulties that each of us faces. These conversations helped me to better understand her and establish a warm, friendly atmosphere in the team. We discussed various topics such as self-realization, life goals and relationships, sharing experiences, and supporting each other in difficult moments. Neither of us knew that fate had prepared many unexpected twists for us. These changes were not easy, but they helped me rethink my outlook on life and find new ways to achieve harmony in relationships, both at work and in my personal life. I knew that Olga Petrovna often detained Vera after work to finish her business and conduct additional classes, which she always reported to the security department. She insisted that no one bother them at this time. I suspected that there might be more to these activities, and I had my own plans. I installed miniature cameras in Olga Petrovna's office, which I easily hid on the upper shelves among old folders. These cameras transmitted a signal to our security system, access to which was protected by a password known only to me. Today was my first opportunity to use the cameras. I sent the assistant to rest, assuring him that I would check the upper floors of the building myself. After he left, I locked the security room from the inside and activated the hidden cameras. On the screen, I saw what was happening in Olga Petrovna's office, which confirmed my suspicions. I decided to close access to the videos, as I had enough material. After writing everything down on a USB stick, I put it in my pocket and put my uniform in order. Then I took my bag and went to Olga Petrovna's office. When I reached the 12th floor, I cautiously approached the door and heard faint sounds coming from the office. I unlocked the door with my master key and entered the room. Olga Petrovna and Verochka were obviously surprised by my appearance. Olga Petrovna tried to hide her confusion and asked me what I was doing here without permission. I calmly said that I watched them through the cameras and recorded everything that happened. Vera screamed, and Olga Petrovna, realizing that she had no chance to get out, turned pale. I explained that I had irrefutable evidence of their relationship, which could lead to serious consequences for her career. Realizing that her position was under threat, Olga Petrovna asked what I was going to do. I decided to keep her in suspense for a while, enjoying her anxiety, but in the end, I informed her that I would not submit an official report to the management. I intended to deal with this issue myself. Vera thanked me, and Olga Petrovna, noticing that the situation might be more complicated, began to think about my intentions. I always thought that punishment should correspond to the offense, I said with a sly smile, unbuttoning the side button of my uniform skirt. The skirt immediately dropped to the floor, as the zipper was only half fastened. I looked pretty confident. My height is 6 feet. I have a strong build with wide shoulders and hips. Despite my 42 years, I was in good shape thanks to my long years of service in the police. My short dark hair and expressive face emphasized my confident and determined character. When I took off my skirt, Olga Petrovna and Verochka were surprised. Their reaction confirmed my assumptions that they had not expected such a turn of events. I quickly took off my tie and shirt, tossing them aside, and looked at the two women with a stern, demanding gaze. Using their confusion, I came closer and continued talking. Olga Petrovna tried to say something, but fell silent, unable to find the right words. I gave them clear instructions, and they, realizing that further resistance was useless, obeyed. Olga Petrovna looked confused, but having gathered her thoughts, she still followed my instructions. I enjoyed the moment, realizing that the situation was now completely under my control. After a while, I decided that was it, and I made it clear to them that there would be no further action on my part. I laughed and, feeling Olga Petrovna's confusion, decided to continue my work more confidently. Olga Petrovna tried to straighten up, expressing disagreement, but I returned her to her place, confidently demonstrating my superiority. Her confusion was obvious, but despite this, she continued to follow my instructions. I watched her actions, feeling the tension build, but I controlled every detail of what was happening. "I can't take it anymore," she whispered, breathing hard and almost giving up from an overabundance of emotions. Olga Petrovna was clearly on the verge, and her words became a confirmation of this. I increased the rhythm, realizing that everything that was happening was coming to its logical conclusion. Olga Petrovna could not stand it and, with a groan, let go of all her feelings, as if she had lost control of what was happening. She was breathing heavily while lying down, but even at that moment I did not allow her to fully recover. With determination, I continued to control the situation, not allowing her to regain her former composure. Olga Petrovna finally submitted, realizing that resistance was useless. With each passing minute, the tension subsided, and Olga Petrovna began to perceive what was happening as inevitable, resigned to the state of affairs. Her inner conflict was obvious, but outwardly she obeyed, accepting her role. Olga Petrovna looked extremely tired and confused. Her breathing was heavy, her hair was disheveled, and her face was covered with sweat. She looked completely exhausted, but I understood that her inner resistance had not yet been completely overcome. Her condition reflected confusion, and I continued to act decisively to complete our interaction. Despite the obvious signs of fatigue, Olga Petrovna maintained an internal struggle. I directed her to come to terms with the situation, and she, realizing her situation, stopped protesting. Her eyes expressed a mixture of confusion and despair, and her voice trembled when she tried to say something. "Please don't," she said softly, but I knew her resistance was already broken. Olga Petrovna no longer tried to resist, realizing that her further attempts would not lead to success. Her gaze was fixed on the distance, and her body was relaxing more and more, as if she had finally accepted what was happening. She surrendered to the circumstances, allowing events to take their course. When the tension had completely disappeared, Olga Petrovna lay quietly, her face expressing complete humility. Now she seemed ready to accept whatever happened next, and her internal conflict was over. Vera was amazed and surprised by what was happening. She looked at me with wide eyes, watching how I confidently and decisively managed the situation. The young secretary was in a state of great excitement. Her thoughts were confused, and she could not believe what was happening. Olga Petrovna seemed to be at the limit of her abilities. Her body expressed fatigue and tension, but she still tried to keep her composure. However, the force of circumstances broke her will, and she gradually began to lose control. Verochka watched this with increasing interest. She seemed to admire the confidence and determination I showed in my leadership role, and it reinforced her own emotions. The secretary realized that her boss could no longer handle the situation, And now everything that was happening was determined by my actions. When everything reached its climax, both women were lying on the table, breathing heavily. Olga Petrovna and Verotchka were exhausted, completely obeying my will. I watched their condition with satisfaction and decided that it was possible to move on. I paused, scanning the space, and gave the women time to recover. Olga Petrovna slowly got to her feet, but clearly felt insecure. She was holding onto the table, her face was tired, but she tried not to show weakness. My subsequent instructions were clear and strict. Olga Petrovna and Verotchka knelt down and completed a simple task, showing their respect. This was an important symbolic step for both women, and they understood its significance. After that, I told them to get up. Olga Petrovna and Verotchka approached me with caution, but also with a clear desire to show their obedience and willingness to follow my instructions. Both women acted synchronously and showed discipline. When everything was completed, I was satisfied with what was happening, realizing that the process of completing the re-education was successful. Both women were now fully aware of their situation and accepted it with respect and understanding. The attention of the two women to my words prepared me for the last act of our meeting. I told Olga Petrovna to sit on the floor, feeling that she needed to rest. She looked tired, but at the same time relieved, because in fact it was already difficult for her to stay on her feet. I gave her a few minutes to regain her strength. When Olga Petrovna took her place, I asked Vera to come to me. We spent a few minutes in a quiet conversation, discussing the next steps and plans. Everything that was happening was unexpected for them, and both women were considering their next actions. After a short pause, I calmly continued to lead the meeting, helping them understand their roles and responsibilities. Olga Petrovna and Verotchka were ready to follow my instructions, showing respect and attention. When our conversation was over, I gave them time to recover and then told them to get up and continue working. Olga Petrovna looked at me with some surprise and asked in a low voice, "What now? What do you want us to do next, Irina Alexandrovna?" I replied with a smile, confident that they understood the essence of the meeting and its importance. Confidently explaining to them what needs to be done next, I ended the conversation. Vera looked pleased with what she had ahead of her and quickly left the office, going to do her assignments. Olga Petrovna, in turn, stayed and patiently waited for my further instructions. I called her over to me and, bending down, calmly explained what she would need to do in the near future. I also assured her that there is still a lot of work ahead, but now she will be more prepared. Left alone in the room, Olga Petrovna calmly listened to my instructions and thanked me for my understanding and support. She realized her role and accepted it with dignity.